Hi folks, and welcome to Truck King. Recently here on the channel, we had something really different to test. It was this truck, the Ford F-150 with the FP700 performance kit attached to it. And after driving that thing for a weekend, it really raised a huge question for both Dad and I. Looking at today's pickup truck market, where have all the street trucks gone? Where are the trucks that are lowered to the ground and they're made to go around corners fast? And in this video, we're going to talk about all the street trucks that there used to be and then try to answer that question for you. Where have they gone?
So Steve and I got talking about street trucks, and what strikes me is that, trucks by their very nature have always been off-road, so to speak, a heck of a lot more than your mom's Oldsmobile. So that in itself was not something that manufacturers had to go after back then. But the idea of a street truck, the idea of bringing it out and actually lowering it and then getting some big horsepower underneath the hood and, running up and down Main Street on Saturday night, well, that was something that guys started to do on their own, particularly in the 80s and the early 90s. And then, of course, Detroit, listen, okay, we can make some money here. So they started bringing out their own special packages. One of the first ones that I remember was the 454 SS. That was a Chevy. And of course, that's the big block. And the thing was an absolute ground pounder. Now, these were always limited builds. But you know what? They all sold. And then as one or the other of those got started, and that was also in response to the fact that Ford in the early 90s brought out their Lightning. Now the Lightning originally was just a big motor slammed into a regular F-150. But then as time went on, it not only became about horsepower and torque, but they started doing chassis work and suspension work, and they actually created the SVT logo, which was Special Vehicles Team. And this was a group of engineers who actually had to take that truck and make it go around a track fast. And I got a chance to do that in 2003, which in my opinion was probably the best Lightning that ever came. And I actually ran it at Mosport here in Canada, and at 140 miles an hour, let me tell you, that was an experience. But after that, there was a small sort of raft, and we should go through them, Steve, of other trucks from other manufacturers. But the reality is that the street truck, shall we call it, trend, was kind of about a 10-year window. And of course today, with the exception of Ford that Steve's talking about right now, there aren't any. Everything is off-road.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we can wind back and go through some of those other street trucks. And Dad mentioned the early 90s, these things got their start. One of the lesser known of these street trucks was the GMC Cyclone. They turbocharged the GMC Sonoma, which was GMC's version of the Chevy S10. And again, that thing really flew under the radar. But early 90s, they started coming up with these packages. You mentioned it, SVT Lightning. And then once you get to the Lightning, well then Dodge responded with the SRT-10. How can we forget about that truck? That thing was a Dodge Ram with a Viper 500 horsepower V10 shoved under the hood. I think you said it there, but I'll say it again. Around 02, 03, that was peak sport truck. That's when we had Lightnings, SRT-10s, and then Ram even came out with the Rumblebee in 2004. Another callback to its sort of muscle car heritage. So yeah, competition always breeds these things. One brand did it a little bit, and then the next brand takes it further and takes it further until we ended up with a time where, yeah, these trucks were legitimately good on the racetrack, which again, trucks by their very nature are not good at going around corners. So it was impressive to see the companies spending time and money on doing that.
Well, it's interestingly enough because it's around this time when NASCAR spins off a truck division.
Exactly.
Yep. Like trucks were just going crazy in terms of the numbers sold. people following them, and then you've got these trucks, and we're getting some serious horsepower under the hood. So NASCAR, who is never late to the party when it comes to making a buck, said, yeah, you know what? I think now's the time to introduce the Truck Series, which then turned into the Craftsman Series.
Yep,
right?
exactly, and it's still going. So then, yeah, you also had a modern day Chevy SS Silverado. They came back out with that in the late 2000s
Yep.
and brought that package back. Another package they had was the F-150 Harley Davidson edition. Now, this wasn't sort of a slam to the ground, you know, racetrack truck, but still, it was about that cool kind of street vibe. And F-150 Ford realized, let's cater to these Harley customers because there's a lot of them and they all buy trucks too.
Well, the neat thing too is that with the Harley package, and one of the things that Ford riffed on was the fact that Harley Davidson and Ford Motor Company both started in 1903. So they considered themselves sort of sisters, and they get together, and for about a 10-year period, they produced the Harley Davidson. But it wasn't just on the F-150. Every year they would put it on a different truck. They would put it on a reg cab. They would put it on a four-door cab. They even had it on the Super Duty.
Cool.
At one point. So basically each one became collectible. Now, the only difference between those and some of the other ones is that Harley had, as one of the engineers once told me, a binder about this thick about how to use their logos, how to use their various paint schemes and colors and all their other doodads. And when the Ford guys said, well, what do you want us to shove under the hood? They said, we don't care. They said, our people don't care about that, so long as it looks good. So, take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, and then the end of this era, in my opinion anyways, was pretty much the Toyota Tacoma XRunner.
I think they were the last to the party.
Kind of last to the party. Toyota came out, they took the Tacoma, they actually didn't give it more power, but they slammed it to the ground, they gave it a sports suspension, you could still get it with the manual transmission, and the XRunner kind of through the late 2010s was sort of the last truck still offering that street thing. And then it went away, and now, Dad, I think we can move on to the next part, is where did the street trucks go? And I'll give you my sort of hypothesis right up front. 2008, the Ford F-150 Raptor. I honestly believe that the Raptor signaled the change for the entire industry from, you know what, the last decade and a half, we've been doing street trucks, but now we're doing this.
No, I agree with that completely. The Raptor was such a seismic shift for the industry. I mean, even if you didn't own one, you knew about it.
Exactly.
And it was just like if you wanted one, you wish you had one, and the whole desert racing thing got started. That's when we've always known about Baja. We've always known about running in the desert, but that's the first time a lot of guys really started paying attention to it. So those race series got a lot of new eyeballs, and then of course everybody was salivating over the Raptor. Well, everybody else woke up to that fact, so much so that we just came back from ZR2 down in California, and the Chevy guys said to us that today 40% of their truck sales are off-road trucks. Okay, 40%. Now, don't forget the other big percentage in there is like fleet vehicles. So honestly, when you look at like what regular guys buy, as versus off-road versus fleet, I'm going to say the off-road is now the biggest single segment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And of course, part of that is just more choice. If you take Chevy, for example, you start at Z71, then you move up into a Trail Boss, then you move up into ZR2, then you move up into ZR2 Bison. So there's 4 steps there of different off-road levels that you can get to, and they reacted to the market going, everyone wants these off-road trucks, so we're going to offer them like crazy. And it's just spread throughout the industry. And then in kind of recent years, we can also point towards the pandemic. This was something that really caused everybody to want to get outdoors and experience more adventure, more off-roading. So, and this isn't limited to pickup trucks. In crossovers and SUVs and even cars these days, the adventure off-road packages have just taken over. So that's where the street trucks went. They just, the trend changed. And this happens with all trends, right? They come and they go. We went through the street truck trend, and now we are fully engulfed in the off-road adventure trend. So far that even cars like, Chevy has their Active series for their small crossovers. It's kind of a joke. Like, they're not real off-roaders, but they're just latching on to that sense of off-road adventure that every brand is just enamored enamored with right now.
Without a doubt. And then, of course, the overlanding has entered the car dictionary. All right, I don't know what the hell that was a few years ago, but now it's not only that you got a truck that can go off-road, apparently you go overlanding with it. Okay, have a good time. Now, amongst all those things, it's fascinating that Ford said, hey, let's throw in a street truck. Let's throw in a 700 horsepower street truck. And to be honest, the jury is still out as to whether or not people are going to buy this thing.
Sure.
I'm really curious, end of the year, how many units they were able to move.
Yeah, agreed. Same.
And based on that, we'll see whether we get a response from the other side of Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we'll see a swing back in that direction. And then the only other thing I can say about the future is electric. Maybe we'll get some super cool electric street trucks, because the one good thing about electric motors is performance, is speed.
Crazy power, crazy torque.
You know what? I'd love it if they took a new Lightning, slam that to the ground, and make that the new street truck.
As you could say, as you like to say, you could be laying it down like James Brown. One of the things Steve and I always argue on any road trip is what's next. Everybody wants to know what's next. Well, that's mostly a question of guesswork. However, there are always clues. Now, I just wanted to tell you that last winter, when I was down south, specifically in the southern states, places like Oklahoma and Texas, New Mexico, one of the things that I was seeing was pickup trucks with low-profile tires, but with these wheel spacers that were pushing the wheels out like 10 inches outside of the wheel wells. Now, they're not low. As a matter of fact, some of them were probably even lifted. However, I looked at that and I was like, now what the hell is this? It's not a street truck. It's not an off-road truck. It's I don't know what the hell it was. It was in between, but I saw a pile of them and I was thinking to myself, okay, is this the way the trends are born? Is this the next coming thing? I don't know, Steve. What do you think?
I certainly hope not, because I think you said it there. Those kind of tires, that's a fashion statement first and foremost. They're not actually good for anything. It's kind of like the Carolina squat, and if you don't know what that is, go look it up. It's the most useless thing in pickup trucks. But anyways, Dad, well, the one thing that will never change is, yeah, these trends will always evolve. They are cyclical. We see them come, we see them go. So all we can do is sit here now and hope that the street trucks come back. I love off-roading, and I love all the choice we have these days. But you know what? Why did we have to give up one thing for the other thing? Why can't we have it all? And that's what I'm hoping the brands recognize, that some people still want these street trucks. And yeah, maybe they will make a comeback.
Yeah, I'd love to see them again. I mean, ones that we've mentioned, I'm lucky enough that I went to the introductions of all those trucks over the last 25 years. And I'd love to be able to burn the tires off an SRT-10
I was going to say, one day, if we can find an affordable SRT-10, we're going to buy it for the channel, for sure. But now, maybe most importantly, we need to hear from you. Please, this needs to become a larger conversation. What do you remember about the street trucks? Did you ever own any of them? Please share your stories with us. We want to hear them. And then tell us what you want to see in the future. And while you're down below leaving us that wonderful comment, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, mash that join button to become a member of our channel, and then come right back here to Truck King to see what we're testing next. See ya.
Keep on trucking.